Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crespillo, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hey out there, it's Marguerite Crespillo, and I'm excited to bring you another fabulous episode of Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people. And my guest today is no exception to that rule. I have watched her bloom and blossom over the last year, and she's really become an extraordinary human being. And in watching her grow, I've had the pleasure of seeing her really rise in leadership, which is one of my favorite things to watch. So today I have a very special guest, Noelle Nielsen. Let me go through and read her bio real quick. And so Noelle Nielsen is the founder of Bright Birch Real Estate at EXP, is a remarkable individual known for her creativity and storytelling skills. Before entering the real estate industry, she achieved success as a published photographer, which I did not know, and practiced law, which I did know. Noelle's ability to captivate audiences with clever videos and marketing strategies has contributed to her reputation as a top producing agent. Driven by her passion for genuine connections, Noelle strives to forge long-lasting relationships with clients. Beyond her professional pursuits, Noelle cherishes her faith, family, and community. Hailing from northern Minnesota and holding a law degree from William Mitchell, she embodies the spirit of her home state and its values. Noelle's commitment to excellence and her devotion to her personal and professional endeavors makes her a true Minnesotan through and through. So welcome, Noelle. We're super excited to have you here today.
I am excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I've only been to Minnesota once in my life, and unfortunately it wasn't the best story. We had a son, Jordan, who was there for a bone marrow transplant at the University of Minnesota. We lived in a town called Burnsville.
That's where I lived for several years.
Is it? We lived in the town called Burnsville. It has a bazillion lakes everywhere and huge mosquitoes. So we lived there in an apartment for 6 months. It wasn't the nicest time of my life, but Minnesota is beautiful. And so it's been fun to learn a different side of Minnesota through you.
You need to come back.
I will. And you live out in the country too, don't you? Or
I do now. So I actually lived in Burnsville for 8 years, and that's where we had our brokerage. And then during the height of all the craziness during 2020, we actually found the most beautiful farm from northern Minnesota, where I'm originally from. And we took the leap and made a huge move and haven't looked back.
Wow. And so how much land are you on?
We have about 120 acres on our current property, and then we've got another 40 acres not too far down the road.
Oh, that's like a big farm. That's not
Mhm.
like we live on 5 acres, and I think I live on a lot of land, and I don't live on a lot, but 5 acres is a lot for us. So that's amazing. And you have 2 children?
I have 3 actually. They range from 11 down to 8, and our 11-year-old actually got fairly well known in the real estate industry because I started marketing with him as a young mom and made little business cards and called him Realtor Boy. And we did little videos of him and toured him around all the homes, and it took off. So a lot of people know and follow his story because they knew him as Realtor Boy back then.
Oh, how funny. I'll have to go look that up. No, I didn't do that. I know my son lives out in El Paso, Texas. And he used his daughter quite a bit when he was early in and had these signs that said, "Call my dad." It was
Yep.
awesome.
Yep.
I think we need to use our kids all day in the real estate industry. They're great marketing people, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's relatable. So if there are people out there with parent or with kids, especially in real estate, and they're thinking that they're going to go around to homes with you as the agent, they're definitely going to relate and feel like you're going to relate if they have kids that are not perfect out on the showings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you go from law to real estate?
During law school, I needed some kind of a creative outlet. So I actually started a photography business during law school, and that took off. And by the time I graduated from law school, I had a job as an attorney and I really enjoyed it. But I also really enjoyed my photography business. And my photography business was doing so well that I was making more than double running that than I was as a first year associate. And so I practiced for a little while and then I just couldn't. I was burning the candle at both ends of the stick. I never would have a day off. I was working, I was pulling all nighters. And so we got to the point where my husband and I had the discussion, and he was also he is a practicing attorney still, but we had the discussion and decided that I could pursue running this business. So I left practicing law to be a full-time photographer and run my own business. And that was really my first journey into entrepreneurship. And I did that for another 7 years. And then we started having kids, and I was starting to be gone on the weekends all the time. And I got really tired of the wedding scene. And so one day I was at a wedding that was like the pinnacle of what I was aiming for as a photographer. And I wasn't enjoying it. And so I went home, we had a conversation around it, and I decided that day to get my license. And so I went ahead, got my license, started dabbling in it. The first sale I had was my own personal home, which a lot of realtors probably can relate to that. And then from there, it just took off. And I started using all of my background within real estate. So I could use the photography and the videography for marketing. I could use my legal background for contracts and negotiating and whatnot. And before I went to law school, I was actually a headhunter and worked as a recruiter. And so all of those things today, I now
Yeah.
use with running my real estate team. And it's been amazing.
It's funny because I think if you could design the exact history and background of what would make a great realtor, that would be it, right? Like a photographer for marketing, the legal aspect for law and recruiting, like that was like it was meant to be, it seems.
God always has a plan in the middle of all of it. It did not make sense to my sphere. I did a post the other day about how thank you to all my friends that have stuck with me through all my different phases of life because I've had a lot of them, but they've all paid off and each one builds upon the next. And I think that's one of the best parts about real estate is all realtors have diverse backgrounds and learning what makes them tick. And that's my favorite part actually about real estate is learning about other realtors.
It's funny because it'll be 30 years for me in December that I've been in real estate. And so my kids now are 26 and 28. So they're adults now. And they're trying to figure their lives out and what they're doing. And I laugh and I say, I didn't get my real estate license till I was 30. And I got fired from more jobs than I was hired from. Like, I'm not a good employee. And I really was designed to always be an entrepreneur. Looking back, it's easy to see. But at the time, I felt like a big failure. And I think a lot of people struggle with that is they don't necessarily know what they're meant to do or what they're supposed to do. And you just have to trust that, like you said, God has a bigger plan.
Yeah, for sure. I still don't know what I'm going to do.
I have loved watching some of your videos. The one with the chains was pretty epic. And so you had your own brokerage for a bit, right?
I
And then
did.
you joined EXP. So
Mhm.
what was that decision all about? Like how long did you have your brokerage before and what brought you to EXP?
Yeah. So we make decisions very quickly in our lives, my husband and I. And I had started a real estate team. I was at a Remax office actually, and our team started outgrowing our office. And so I went to my broker at that time and just was like, hey, I need more space. I put out an ad, and within 2 months I had 10 agents on my team because people were really attracted to the video. And I needed a space where we could collaborate and film and do all this stuff. And it just wasn't going to happen at that office. So I started looking for my own office space and happened upon a beautiful one and started thinking, gosh, if I'm going to do this, I might as well just start my own brokerage. So we opened our doors in late 2018. And really within 6 months, the brokerage was at 20 agents. It was going really well. I had no complaints. The agents had everything. They had CRMs. They had beautiful space to come to. We had front desk, full-time administrative staff. We had a full-time videographer. Like, we had literally everything for them. And one day, one of the agents that I had attracted in, he was one of our bigger agents at the brokerage, and he had his own team. And he came into my office and he said, hey, I love you, love this, love everything about it, but I've decided I'm going to go get my license in Florida. And if you don't figure out how to go get your broker's license in Florida, I'm going to have to leave. And I went home just devastated. One, it was going to devastate me, like, from a perception perspective, like, people were going to look and judge that this agent who had just joined now was going to turn around and leave. And two, I just realized, oh my gosh, I can give these people everything. I can be everything for them. I still can't keep them. And so when I went home that night, my husband was talking to me saying, hey, let's look at EXP now. Are you willing to look at it? And I did not want to look at it. I had a lot of pride around what I had created. I thought I knew what it was. I thought I understood everything about it when I actually knew nothing about it. But finally, I just had a weak moment and I was like, okay, fine. I'll look at it with you. So we started looking at it. We started running numbers at what it would look like for us as a brokerage to move over, what it would look like for our agents. And within a couple of days, I was actually sold. I saw the model for the first time, actually realizing what it could do for my agents. It wasn't even so much about me as it was about the agents. And then I started thinking, oh my gosh, if they see this, they're all going to leave. It doesn't matter what my relationship is with them. This is a better model. It's a far better model than what I could ever offer. So that was a Thursday. And by Monday, our whole brokerage had moved over to EXP. Wow. And that was in 2019. So I only had my brokerage open for a year. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you have a brokerage or a large team, you don't really have to change much about your business. You just move it over onto the platform and you give up all the liability and you give up all of the stress and the things that you don't love doing. Like, I hated it. I literally hated it on a Friday night when I was trying to get my own stuff done, when an agent would come in. Hey, can I get that check? I just had a closing. And it's, no, I don't want to print out a check for you right now. I'm busy. And being able to give up all that, but maintain the relationships and the coaching and the help with these agents was amazing. Yeah, it's been a huge blessing. So we brought 20 agents in with us. And now today my group is at about 535.
Yeah, you and I are neck and neck every month. When I look at it, I'm like, damn it, she beat me this month. I see it every month. We're usually like one or two off from each other.
Oh, funny.
And I see it every month.
So fun.
So the funny thing is I had a brokerage of 120 agents. So I had a big company for 22 years. And I went through something similar. One of my top people, at that time, EXP didn't, it existed, but we didn't know about it yet. And one of my top people left and went to another brokerage. And I was, again, devastated, took our whole team. And when I sat down and looked at all the numbers and the production, even with a brokerage of 120 agents. So for any of you independent brokers out there, if you're listening, the numbers did not make sense when you pulled me out of the equation, right? Yep. And that's what I think is common for so many brokerages. And so we actually ended up shutting down our brokerage. And a year later, about almost 2 years later, in October of 2016, I got that phone call from Brent Go, and he's in my market. So I'd known him for 20 plus years, him and Kathy. And I was like, what are you selling now, Brent? And when we sat down and looked at the model, both my husband and I were like, okay, this 100% makes sense. And we didn't, EXP, there was only 1,400 agents in the whole company when we joined at that time. So we didn't know anything about it. We all thought Brent was crazy. So it was a trip. And now to see where it is now is incredible to me. It's like beyond I can't even put it in words what it is.
Yes, it is. It's really hard to describe it to people. Elizabeth Riley always says, from the outside looking in, it's impossible to understand, and from the inside looking out, it's impossible to explain.
Yes.
And it is so true. It's funny. It's one of those things where when you first get started with it, you question if it's real. People's numbers, and you're like, is that real? Is that even
Yeah.
possible? And
Yeah.
it is. It's real and it's possible, and it's still possible.
So what are you working on now? Like how has EXP changed your life since 2019? You've been here 4 years now, just
Mhm.
about.
Yeah.
And how obviously you went and bought a big farm.
Mhm.
I don't know if you did that prior to EXP or after. Did you buy it after?
Nope, it was after we joined EXP, about a year after, and I started realizing that I could do everything that I really needed to do virtually. And so we made the move on a whim. The world was shut down, really. So we weren't thinking through every aspect of it. We just took the whim and made the move and kept my office open for a while still. And I'm about 2 hours outside of where my primary market was at that time now. And it's an easy commute. And I would just pop down there once a week and check in with my agents, check in with the team. And then since then, I retired that brand and relaunched a fresh team, and we call it Minnesotan, actually.
I like it.
And we can do everything virtually, right? So our whole goal is that we cover the whole state of Minnesota, because agents can really join in from our meetings from wherever. And as long as we've got coverage, we'll take the leads, we'll take the clients. And another thing that had started happening when I made this move was I started realizing the power of referrals within EXP. And we get so many out of state referrals, which it's nuts, because you wouldn't think that people would be moving from out of state into Minnesota, but it happens quite often actually. And so I started getting all these referrals and needed people to work the referrals. So it became also an attraction source on that end, just from the referral side of things at EXP.
Are you still actively producing? Are you out selling? Or are you primarily?
I will occasionally show homes. I just did last weekend. I went out and showed some of my luxury buyers a house. Toward the end of when I was really full-time selling, I was working with luxury builders. And so I had developed this niche for myself in the luxury market. And I'm really passionate still about homes and showing homes. And occasionally I will still work with really fun clients. They either have to be buying something that I really love looking at, or they just have to be really fun clients. And so I get the best of both worlds. Yeah. So I will still sell. I think it's really important as a leader in real estate to stay involved a little bit in the sales side, so that you understand what your agents are going through. It helps you be a better coach, in my opinion, when you do that and you stay in the trenches at least a little.
How have things changed for you and your family with your husband and your kids?
Oh boy. Yeah. So much more flexibility. We can be completely flexible as far as where we go, when we go, what we do, taking vacations. Last year in the winter, it was a really tough winter in Minnesota. I hadn't planned a spring break or anything yet, because we do everything last minute and on a whim. The week before their spring break, I was like, let's go to Hawaii. So we booked a trip, went for 2 weeks, and it's just been amazing. It's been amazing. My husband's still a practicing attorney, but he's also been able to get a little bit more particular about what he does and what he represents, which has been also just a huge blessing.
Yeah, my husband Joe was our broker of our company for many years. So in 2018, we retired him and he does stand-up comedy now, which is awesome and is a ton of fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a blast to watch. And I feel real blessed that he's able to follow that dream. I heard somebody, I think on one of our calls last week, because for those of you who don't know, Noelle and I are both on part of the influencers at EXP. So we're in the beta group and you're in charge right now. So she's been running the show there. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, talked about the value of time freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people talk a lot about financial freedom,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't talk about time and location freedom. So the location freedom, obviously for you, allowed you and me as well. Like I live out in the country. I work from home most of the time, to be able to have that and to be able to honestly connect with people from all over the world via
Mhm.
Zoom is like something out of, I don't know, the Jetsons or something from when I was a kid, because I don't know that ever in my wildest dreams I imagined that being possible. And
Yeah,
so be able to have a location freedom where you can hang out with your kids, and your kids, just so you know, you probably already know this, are at an age where I feel like they need you more than they did when they were little.
yeah,
And I think that a lot of times people get focused on all of the bonding when they're like little, 1 and 2, but kids that are like headed into middle school and high school, is to me, that's when they need you to be around more than ever.
absolutely. Yeah, it's true. And just to be able to go to their activities or whatever during the school year in the middle of the day, or take a day off and spend time with them, or block time into your schedule. When you're in the grind of real estate and you're beholden to your client's schedule, you can't necessarily do that, right? We try to coach our agents on putting family first, letting people know that you have appointments at that time, right? If you've got family things happening. But it's really hard to do that. And I think, really, for me, with being in leadership at EXP, it's allowed me to not have to take all of the clients, to not have to grind like I otherwise would have. Because as a realtor, there's only a couple different ways you can give yourself a raise. You can give yourself a raise by doing more deals. You can give yourself a raise by taking on the responsibility of running a team. You can give yourself a raise by buying real estate, right? But it takes a while to get to that part. Or you can also add on the residual income pillar, which is revenue
Yeah.
share, which is what we have at EXP. And so it's shocking me that more people don't push into it more than they do, because it is such a huge opportunity and such a big blessing for the families that have pushed into it.
100%. And so, what are you working on? What are you most excited about right now?
That's a good question. So last year at this time, we were just starting to build the sales team that we have, and that is now up and running. It's going very well. It's been great for our agents. And now I'm working a little bit more on my personal brand, because I had set that aside for a long time. And I'm really focusing on it for this next year of what is my primary message going to be online? What am I doing with it? Who am I talking to? Why am I talking to them? What am I trying to do with it? Today we had a training on YouTube, for example. I've never really pushed into YouTube. I did a lot of video, like a lot, back in 2017 to 2020. And I put everything just on Facebook, and I never really pushed on YouTube. And so now I'm reevaluating that and thinking about pushing into new avenues and using that as another way to get my name out there, another way to brand, and another way to just reach people and help people. Honestly, like, that's a big thing for me, is helping people be authentic to who they actually want to be, instead of being so stressed out on trying to be like this perfect person that they think that they need to show up online as. My success has come from just being crazy and being myself and making decisions and not hiding them, but sharing them and trying to impact others that way.
I love that, because this morning, so we had a leadership call this morning, and on there, I was cracking up when we were saying we're not all young bachelor type guys. But I love the feedback from that too, was that, hey, you don't have to be. You can
Right.
be the mom, you can be the dad, you can be the soccer mom, or whatever it is you are, and still create that
Yeah.
version of success that works for you, right?
Yeah, you are your brand. I think a lot of times when we see today, it's very trendy to have those perfect looking talking head videos where it's a perfect topic and it's a perfectly done video and it's perfectly cut. And I think a lot of people resonate with the crazy as well. So if you're out there sharing a story of something that just happened to you, or sharing something that's really valuable to you, or showing something that you're doing in your personal life, people will resonate with that just as much as they will with the perfectly produced videos. So that, and for me, that's really how I made a name. I had a child that I didn't have childcare for, and I was trying to be a realtor, and I started taking him with me. And that's really how I got started. And ever since then, I've just always, if it's a fun or crazy idea, I'll share it. I'll do it. And people remember that stuff. I got a call the other day from an agent that was asking me questions about a video I posted 4 years ago. And I was just like, you remember that? I remembered it because it was unusual and different and crazy. And I think people just get so caught up in trying to come across as perfect that sometimes they miss out on doing a really neat idea that could have really been relatable and resonated with a lot more people.
I was looking at, because they were talking about analytics this morning. So I was like, oh, I guess I better go look at my analytics. Right?
Yeah.
And I looked at my most watched video, and it's actually, here's the irony of it. I was supposed to go to Cabo earlier this year. I did go to Cabo, and I lost my passport and could not find, I mean, I was a week out and I couldn't find my passport. So I was going nuts trying to find my passport. And so I recorded this whole video of me being in San Francisco. I was so irritated, had to go to the embassy and get an emergency passport. And that video has had the most views. The crazy part is that I just found that passport that was lost a couple days ago. I'm like, I cannot believe I found that passport.
I saw you post about that. Yeah. That's the thing, is you've got to think about the stuff that you personally relate to when you are looking online and exploring online. And I always question people like, are you someone that you would want to follow? Would you really enjoy following yourself? If not, then go and change it. What are the things that you love following, and be that. Go out and be authentic and true to who you are.
100%. So with your personal brand, what are you planning on doing with that?
We will see. I'm not 100% sure. I'm actually in a coaching program right now for it, for myself, and just working through it. It's a journey for myself because the last several years, I've always been working on brands. I love branding. Even back when I started my photography business, I love branding and doing that, but I never branded myself. I would always pick a different name. I would always pick something unusual. I'd pick something that I could grow under that brand. And so for the very first time ever, I'm working on my own personal brand, and it feels really weird and it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable process to go through it and really have some of that self-exploration about who are you at your core and how can you actually help people. And I started on the journey. I've been on the journey for a while, but I really had a catalyst moment about a year ago, sitting in a thing that Ed Milet was speaking at. Yeah. And he gave his line, "You're the most perfectly positioned to help the person who is where you once were." Right. And so thinking about that and thinking about the things that I've done that have created success in my own life and helped others find that same success. And I'm really passionate about that. So that's what's coming. There might be a book. There might be a podcast. I don't know yet. I'm thinking.
I've done this podcast for, I think, 8 years now, but I took a 2-year break during kind of all the craziness. I took a 2-year break. And what happened about, I guess, almost 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago, is somebody asked me that question, what have you done that you love the most? I was like, I love doing my podcast.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy it because I love having these conversations. Like, I'm not ever going to be Oprah, but I love having these conversations and digging in and getting to know people. And then in 2021, I did publish my book, but it's a relationship book called The 100 Things I Love About You.
I need to check that out. Yeah.
I'll get your address when we get offline. I'll send you a copy. But it's definitely, as you grow, you start to see what's more possible. And I think that many times we get into that place where we can't necessarily see what is beyond where we are right now. And I love that quote you said from Ed Milet, is that how many people are watching you that you don't even know? I was talking to one of my agents last night, and he was indicating that I said, what do you really want to do? He goes, I really want to get into leadership. I want to be a leader. I said, what does that look like for you? And he goes, I have no idea. And I said, what I know is that it starts with you, right? Like, you have to lead yourself first. And I know that as a mom and entrepreneur and all the things that you do, it's really easy to put yourself on the back burner, right? Behind everything else that seems to be a priority. But you have a very bright light, young lady.
Oh.
And I am excited to see what you're going to do, because I think you have a very bright light and you definitely fill a room with I don't know, how tall are you? You're not very tall.
I'm 5 feet tall.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, met her, I'm like, wow, you sure show up a lot bigger than you are.
That is really funny. Somebody said that to me the other day, that they were shocked when they first met me because we had met so many times on Zoom and they had no idea that I was,
Well, to
oh,
me, it says something because you fill a room when you walk
oh,
into it. So I'm excited
I
to see
appreciate
what you're doing and what's going on for you. Does your husband work in your business much, or you guys keep it pretty separate?
it. No, he does. He does. He's been the behind the scenes wizard for a lot of the things that I've done. Currently, to this day, he still does quite a bit with bringing agents in and walking them through numbers and forecasting and helping people plan ahead for how to make a transition. He by trade, he's a mergers and acquisitions attorney and a business attorney. And so he's
Right.
really good at helping people see the bigger picture of what this looks like when you're talking to brokers or when you're talking to team leaders and people that are trying to figure out, how does this look for my business? So it's one thing when you're bringing in a solo agent
Right.
who doesn't have any other responsibilities besides looking at their fees. But when you're taking in a group of people, as you experienced yourself, like when you're running a brokerage, you have a lot of responsibility with that. You need to understand the financials. And so he has been a huge asset for me to lean on with that when we're bringing people in. It's, yeah.
I think that it's essential, and learning how to work together is a whole nother dynamic, right? That's a different conversation, but
That
the
could be a whole nother podcast.
we should do one on that one because I've worked with my husband and I've been together 37 years. So we worked together for most of that. Originally he was in the mortgage business and I did real estate, and then he got out of the mortgage business and he helped run our brokerage. But I was talking to somebody else about this the other day and they're like, "How did you do it?" And I said, "We stayed in our lane.
Yeah,
We were really good at, I don't get into his corner and he doesn't get into my corner, because when you're both trying to compete or do, it's, yeah, it can turn into
it's the
disaster zone,
truth.
but yeah, for sure." And so as far as your growth at EXP, what is your goal?
So my goal has always been to get to 1,000 agents. Like that was my goal from the very beginning, was to get to 1,000. And the last year has been really interesting for growth, just because I think with the current market conditions, we've lost a lot of agents that aren't producing. A lot of people have retired their licenses, or they're putting their licenses on ice, or they're going back to full-time jobs because it's not as easy to do this job as it was 3 years ago. It really isn't. And that's okay. So we've continued to grow, but we also have revamped our group, which is interesting. I'm sure you probably have had some of the same experience, but my revenue share continues to increase because we
I know.
are adding producing agents, we're keeping our producing agents, and we're just losing the non-producers. And that's okay. Like I always tell agents, hey, listen, if you want to run, I'm going to run right with you. If you want to walk, I'll walk right with you. But if you're just going to stand still, like I don't have time for that. I don't
Right.
want to do that. I don't want to try to be leading the horse to water that doesn't want to take a drink. It's not my thing. That the best thing that you can do in your business life is surround yourself with other people that give off the same vibration and energy that you have, because then you are going to be motivated to continue to push harder, to move harder. And you know what? Sometimes I'll take in a brand new agent. If they come into the room and they have the right energy, great. Come along with me in this journey. In fact, my biggest growth leader in my group was a brand new agent that was on my team. And he just has amazing energy. So anyone can come in and do this, but if you want to come in and just sit there and wait for the deals to show up or wait for the agents to show up, it's a job. You have to treat it like a job. It is a job. It's a very enjoyable job. And most of us that are at the position that we're at are very passionate about this job. So it doesn't look like it's a job. It just, my friends that aren't in the industry are like, what do you do actually? Because it looks like you have the most fun ever and it doesn't look like you work.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that 100%. I've been quoting this quote a lot the last few days because it seems to have been coming up with, I don't know if you've read any of Harvey Mackey's books. He's awesome. And he had a quote that says, "When the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked." And the tide has gone out for the real
Oh
estate
yeah.
industry. So there's a lot of people who were touting their own horn about stuff, but weren't really doing the work. And so it's been, like I said, I've been here 30 years, so I've seen this a few times, but it's been really interesting this time around to see who's, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. They don't, I'm like, well, you have to you have to go to work.
You have to work. You have to show up for your job. If you were paying yourself hourly, if you were your employee, would you keep your job or would you get fired? Like when you think about 5-10 years ago when people used to go into the office, you don't get to keep your job if you're just in the break room eating donuts all day and you're not going to like provide any value. It's the same thing with real estate. If you want to get paid, you do need to show up for work.
Yeah, it's 100% true. I love that. Although I would love to sit and eat donuts all day, but I don't think it works on my hip line anymore. So are you going to be at EXP Con?
Oh yeah. Yep. I wouldn't miss it. It's to me the best event of the year. It's the best one for EXP agents to go to. It's the best one to bring guests to. The networking is phenomenal. The location is fabulous. I've heard this year is going to be really great. I've heard some behind the scenes scoop. So yeah, there's no way I'd miss it. I think in my group, we actually already have 50 people signed up.
That's exciting.
So it's going to be a good showing, I think.
I definitely someday may come to Minnesota as long as it's not winter time. I'm not a cold-blooded person. I remember when we had to go to Minnesota, we went there at the beginning of June. I said, my only requirement is that we get out of here before it actually snows, because I remember driving down the road and you guys have these like tall poles on the side of the road. And I go, what are those? So you can find the road in the snow.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's real. It's a real thing. This last year, we had the record amount of snow that we ever had, like in history. And so it was a long winter. I am Minnesotan through and through. I love the winter. In fact, it's July, obviously right now, but I am already looking forward to winter. I love winter, like going to San Antonio last week. And then Las Vegas was 115 degrees.
I know. I saw some of your posts and I was laughing about that too. I was like, it gets hot here where I live, but it doesn't get cold. I get to go visit the snow. So I'm an hour and a half from Tahoe.
Okay.
So I can go up to Tahoe and visit the snow and come home. That's my favorite kind of snow. So
I understand that. I get it.
I'm thrilled to get to talk to you. And I hope that we get to actually spend some time together. I know we're talking about having an influencers meeting maybe the day before, and I'm excited about that. So.
I would love it. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining us today and being here. And I'm super grateful for your time. And I'm having fun watching you lead our beta influencers group and whip all those guys into shape. I like it.
Oh, we'll see.
Thanks again. I appreciate you being here. And thank you everybody else for joining us on Real Estate Real World today, where we get to talk to amazing people. Be sure and follow us on all your social channels, and we'll have information on how you can also follow Noelle in our show notes. So I'm looking forward to that book, Noelle. I'm actually looking forward to that. I want to hear more about your ideas for that, and we'll be talking about it in the future. So thank you everybody for joining us. Go out and make it an amazing day.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.